Hello, everyone. Got a few dirty jokes for you today.
So there was a 13-year-old boy that had hopeful wish that one day he would find himself a girlfriend with big breasts, believing it to be a symbol of his teenage dreams. Time passed, and at the age of 16, he indeed found a girlfriend with a generous bust. However, to his disappointment, their relationship lacked the spark of passion he craved. Recognizing his need for a partner who possessed an exuberant zest for life, he set out on a new quest. During his college years, he embarked on a romantic journey with a girl full of passion. Yet, as he discovered, her emotions ran high, often transforming ordinary situations into emergencies. She had a tendency to become a drama queen, shedding tears incessantly and even resorting to threats of self-harm. Realizing the importance of stability, he resolved to seek a companion who could offer him a sense of grounding. At the age of 25, he encountered a girl who embodied stability in every aspect. However, he soon found her predictability and lack of excitement to be dulling. Life became monotonous, prompting him to search for a partner who could infuse his days with a much-needed dose of exhilaration. His pursuit led him to a vivacious and thrilling girl at the age of 28. But as time went on, he struggled to keep up with her constant rush from one thing to another. Her impulsiveness brought both moments of happiness and misery, leaving him emotionally exhausted. Despite the initial fun and her boundless energy, he realized that her lack of direction made it difficult for him to envision a shared future. Thus, he yearned for a woman with genuine ambition. When he turned 30, fortune finally smiled upon him, introducing him to a smart, ambitious woman who firmly grounded herself in reality. Captivated by her intelligence and drive, he took the bold step of marrying her. However, in an unexpected turn of events, her ambitious nature ultimately led her to initiate a divorce, claiming everything he owned as her own. But he is older and wiser now, and looking for a girl with big breasts. So, the other day my buddy asked why I divorced my wife. I told him one big reason was because she was way too loud in bed. He asked, was that such a problem that you needed to end things? I said, yeah, I could hear her from 2 houses away. So a woman visits a lawyer and says she wants to divorce her husband. The lawyer asks, well, to get the best results for you, we're going to need a good reason. Is he not sharing his money with you? The woman answers, oh, he shares every dime with me. If he doesn't, he knows I won't be cooking for a week. The lawyer asks, all right then, does he ever get physical or beat you? The woman replies, goodness no. He knows I'd beat the hell out of him if he ever laid a hand on me. The lawyer asks, how about him being faithful? The woman's eyes light up. That's where we'll get him. He didn't even father our second child. So a man stood outside of his house after a bitter divorce, and he noticed a crate of beer bottles. He took out an empty bottle and smashed it onto the wall, swearing, you are the reason I don't have a wife. He smashed the second bottle. You are the reason I don't have children. He smashed the third bottle. You are the reason I don't have a job. When he took the fourth bottle, he realized that the bottle was still sealed and full of beer, and he said to the bottle, you stand aside. I know you are not involved. So a man and his wife were dining in a restaurant when the wife kept staring at a drunk knocking back whiskey at a nearby table. Curious, the husband asked, do you know him? Yes, sighed the wife. He's my ex. He started drinking right after we divorced 10 years ago, and I hear he hasn't been sober since." "Wow," said the husband, chuckling. "Who would have thought it was possible to celebrate for that long?" "So I met my recently divorced friend for a beer last week. Obviously, I asked him how the divorce went. She got the best lawyers in the country, so I lost my kids, my house, my car, and my dog," he said. "I have to pay half of my paycheck in child support and the other half in alimony. She gets most of my 401k, and I even had to hand over my family's heirlooms. But I can't complain." "Oh, so there's a bright side to all of this?" I asked. "No," he said. "The settlement also says I can't complain." So Earl and Bubba, two good old boys from Dixie, are sitting quietly in a boat, fishing, chewing tobacco, and drinking beer. Out of nowhere, Bubba says, "I think I'm gonna divorce my wife. She hasn't spoken to me in over 2 months." Earl takes a sip of his beer, spits, and says, "You better think that over, buddy. Women like that are hard to find." So there's a boy who lives with a mom and a dad. The mom and the dad get into an argument and file for a divorce. The mom gets to keep the kid, while the dad gets to take his stuff and leave. Before going to bed, the boy sees a shooting star in the sky and wishes for his mom and dad to be back together again. The next morning, the boy goes downstairs to see his mom and dad are back together and are happy with each other. The boy, however, isn't happy but confused. He takes one good look at the father and goes up to the mom and asks her, "Who's this guy?" So a married couple is driving down the interstate at 55 miles per hour. The husband is behind the wheel. His wife looks over at him and says, "Honey, I know we've been married for 15 years, but I want a divorce." The husband says nothing but slowly increases speed to 60 miles per hour. She then says, "I don't want you to try to talk me out of it, because I've been having an affair with your best friend, and he's a better lover than you." Again, the husband stays quiet and just speeds up as his anger increases. She says, "I want the house." Again, husband speeds up, now doing 70 miles per hour. She says, "I want the kids too." The husband just keeps driving faster and faster. Now he's up to 80 miles per hour. She says, "I want the car, the checking account, and all the credit cards too." The husband slowly starts to veer toward a bridge overpass piling as she says, "Is there anything you want?" The husband says, "No, I've got everything I need." She asks, "What's that?" The husband replies, "Just before they hit the wall at 90 miles per hour, I've got the airbag." So a doctor, a lawyer, and a manager were discussing the relative merits of having a wife or a mistress. The lawyer says, "For sure, a mistress is better. If you have a wife and want a divorce, it causes all sorts of legal problems." The doctor says, "It's better to have a wife because the sense of security lowers your stress and is good for your health." The manager says, "You're both wrong. It's best to have both, so that when the wife thinks you're with the mistress and the mistress thinks you're with your wife, you can go to the office and do some work." So an old man calls his son and says, "Listen, your mother and I are getting a divorce. 45 years of misery is enough." "Dad, what are you talking about?" The son screams. "We can't stand the sight of each other any longer," he says. "I'm sick of her face, and I'm sick of talking about this. So call your sister and tell her," and he hangs up. Now, the son is worried. He calls his sister. She says, like hell, they're getting divorced. She calls their father immediately. You're not getting divorced. Don't do another thing. The two of us are flying home tomorrow to talk about this. Until then, don't call a lawyer. Don't file a paper. Do you hear me? She hangs up the phone. The old man turns to his wife and says, okay, they're both coming for Christmas and paying their own airfares. So the secretary of a high-priced lawyer announced to him the arrival of a new client, a gorgeous, young, blonde woman. The woman was seated and said, I want a divorce. On what grounds? Asked the lawyer. Infidelity. I don't think my husband has been faithful to me. What makes you think that? Asked the lawyer. Well, the woman replies, I don't think he's the father of my child. So one Saturday morning, Sam and his wife Rachel found themselves at the club's golf course, ready for a friendly match. Rachel positioned herself to take the first swing, and to Sam's amazement, she drove a 300-yard tee shot straight down the fairway. Astonished, Sam exclaimed, Wow, I have never seen you play this well before. Rachel beamed and replied, I took lessons. The next day, they decided to test their skills on the tennis court. They teamed up for a mixed doubles match against another couple from the club. Throughout the game, Rachel amazed Sam with her powerful serves and perfect aim, never missing a point. Impressed, Sam said. Wow, I have never seen you hit so well before. Rachel, grinning, responded, I took lessons. On Sunday evening, the couple decided to enjoy a quiet dinner at home to wrap up their eventful weekend. Rachel spent the afternoon preparing a sumptuous feast, and when Sam saw the perfect plates of beef Wellington set on the table, he couldn't help but gush, delicious. I have never seen you cook like this before. Rachel smiled and said, I took lessons. After enjoying their meal and feeling the romantic atmosphere, Rachel gave Sam that enticing look, and they both headed upstairs to their bedroom. About 30 minutes later, Sam rolled over, still in awe, and exclaimed, Wow, that was incredible, amazing, so hot. He paused for a moment and then added, I want a divorce. So a lawyer married a woman who had previously divorced 10 husbands. On their wedding night, she told her new husband, Please be gentle, I'm still a virgin. What? Said the puzzled groom. How can that be if you've been married 10 times? Well, my first husband was a sales representative. He kept telling me how great it was going to be. My second husband was in software services. He was never really sure how it was supposed to function, but he said he'd look into it and get back to me. My third husband was from field services. He said everything checked out diagnostically, but he just couldn't get the system up. My fourth husband was in telemarketing. Even though he knew he had the order, he didn't know when he would be able to deliver. Husband number 5 was an engineer. He understood the basic process, but wanted 3 years to research, implement, and design a new state-of-the-art method. Husband number 6 was from finance and administration. He thought he knew how, but he wasn't sure whether it was his job or not. Husband number 7 was in marketing. Although he had a nice product, he was never sure how to position it. Husband number 8 was a psychologist. All he ever did was talk about it. Husband number 9 was a gynecologist. All he did was look at it. Husband number 10 was a stamp collector. All he ever did was God. I miss him, but now that I've married you, I'm really excited. Good, said the new husband, but why? You're a lawyer. This time, I know I'm gonna get screwed. So a guy walked into a post office just before Valentine's Day. He couldn't help but notice a middle-aged, balding man wearing a suit, standing in a corner sticking love stamps on bright pink envelopes with hearts all over them. There were stacks and stacks of envelopes. He kept watching as the man then took out a bottle of Chanel perfume from his pocket and started spraying the scent over the envelopes. By now, the guy's curiosity had got the better of him, so he asked the man what he was doing. The man replied, "Every year before Valentine's Day, I send out 500 Valentine's Day cards, signed." "Guess who?" the guy asked. "But why?" The man replied, "I'm a divorce lawyer." So, a Darwin woman, Beverly Thompson, 38, has stopped a crocodile attack using a small .22 caliber Ruger pistol. This is a story of self-control, marksmanship, and quick thinking by a brave, cool-headed woman with a small pistol against a fierce predator. Here's her story, in her own words. While walking along the edge of a lake near my house in the village's estate near Darwin, discussing a property settlement with my soon-to-be ex-husband and other divorce issues, we were surprised by a huge 4-meter crocodile which suddenly emerged from the murky water. It began charging us, with its large jaws wide open. She must have been protecting her nest because she was extremely aggressive. If I had not had my little Ruger .22 caliber pistol with me, I wouldn't be here today, said Beverly. Just one shot to my estranged husband's kneecap was all it took. The croc got him easily, and I was able to escape by just walking away at a brisk pace. The amount I saved in lawyer's fees was really incredible, and his life insurance was also a big bonus. So a mom is driving the little girl to her friend's place for playdate. "Mommy," the little girl asks, "how old are you?" "Honey, you are not supposed to ask a lady her age," the mother warns. "It is not polite." "Okay," the little girl says. "How much do you weigh?" "Now really," the mother says, "these are personal questions and are really none of your business. Why did you and Daddy get a divorce?" "Those are enough questions, honestly." The exasperated mother walks away as the two friends begin to play. "My mom wouldn't tell me anything," the little girl says to her friend. "Well," said the friend, "all you need to do is look at her driver's license. It's like a report card. It has everything on it." Later that night, the little girl says to her mother, "I know how old you are. You are 32. The mother is surprised and asks, "How did you find that out?" "I also know that you weigh 140 pounds. The mother is past, surprised and shocked now. "How in heaven's name did you find that out?" "And," the little girl says triumphantly, "I know why you and Daddy got a divorce." "Oh, really?" the mother asks. "Why?" "Because you got an F in sex." So a traveler once visited a small village in the countryside. At the local bar, someone asked him if he was married. "I'm divorced, actually. Never could find a woman I didn't end up fighting with all the time," he replied. The local man said, "Then you should go talk to the old couple that lives on the hill outside the village. Rumor has it that they've been married over 60 years, and they've never fought this whole time." "What? That's impossible. Everyone has fights," exclaimed the traveler. But the local swore to him it was the truth, and nothing but. The traveler just had to check it out, and in the morning he knocked on the door of the little house on the hill and was immediately welcomed by the husband, who invited him in for tea. After the traveler explained why he came to see him, the man smiled and nodded. "It's true. We never fight." "Please," begged the traveler, "can you tell me your secret? "Well," said the old man, "it all started about 60 years ago, right after the wedding. We were riding our mule back to town and walking it down the street when it tripped over a stone, and my wife said to him, 'That's one.' We kept riding, and he tripped again on another stone, which made my wife immediately say, 'That's two.' 2 minutes later, the mule trips over a stone again. My wife said, 'That's three.' She pulled out a gun I never knew she had and shot it in the head without thinking twice. I was shocked and yelled at her, 'What the heck do you think you're doing? We needed that mule.' 'Are you crazy?' My wife looked me straight in the eye and said, 'That's one.' And we haven't had a fight since. So, Dam married one of a pair of identical twin girls. Less than a year later, he was in court filing for a divorce. 'Okay,' the judge said, 'tell the court why you want a divorce.' 'Well, Your Honor,' Dan started, 'every once in a while, my sister-in-law would come over for a visit, and because she and my wife are so identical looking, every once in a while, I'd end up making love to her by mistake.' 'Surely there must be some difference between the two women,' the judge said. 'You'd better believe there is a difference, Your Honor. That's why I want the divorce,' he replied. So it was the 1930s, and a rich banker and his wife were having dinner at a very fine restaurant when this absolutely stunning young woman comes over to their table, gives the husband a big kiss, says she'll see him later, and walks away. His wife glares at him and says, 'Who the heck was that?' 'Oh,' replies the husband sheepishly, 'she's just my mistress.' 'Well, that's the last straw,' says the wife. 'I've had enough. I want a divorce.' 'I can understand that,' replies her husband. 'But remember, if we get a divorce, it will mean no more shopping trips to Paris, no more wintering in Barbados, no more summers in Tuscany, no more expensive cars in the garage, and no more yacht club. But the decision is yours.' Just then, a mutual friend enters the restaurant with a gorgeous babe on his arm. 'Who's that woman with Jim?' asks the wife. 'That's his mistress,' says her husband. His wife huffed. 'Ours is Prettier.' So I was sitting on a bench in the park next to a homeless man. I asked him how he ended up this way. He said, 'Up until last week, I still had it all. A cook cooked my meals, my room was cleaned, my clothes were washed, pressed. I had a roof over my head. I had TV, internet. I went to the gym, the pool, the library. I could still go to school.' I asked him, 'What happened? Drugs? Alcohol? Divorce?' 'Oh no, nothing like that,' he said. 'I got out of prison.' So Tim and Steve were catching up at their 30th college reunion. After the excitement of greeting old friends settled down, Tim noticed that Steve seemed a bit down. So he started asking questions. Steve confessed that, despite appearances, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Tim responded, 'But Steve, you're the picture of success. You've taken 2 companies public and cashed out with so much money that there's almost nothing you can't buy. Your kids turned out great. You're widely respected in the industry. You have status, money. Hell, you've even kept your hair and gotten better looking. What could possibly be wrong?' Steve sighed and said, 'Actually, money is the problem. The one thing I really want, the one thing that would give me happiness, is the one thing I can't afford.' Tim, confused, asked, 'What could be so valuable to you, yet so expensive, that even you, one of the richest men in the world, can't afford it?' Steve looked down at his drink, his voice heavy, and said, 'A divorce.' So there are 5 stages of screwing. The first is screwing like a smurf. This happens during the honeymoon period. You both keep doing it until you're blue in the face. The second stage is screwing in the kitchen. This is at the beginning of the marriage. You'll make love anywhere, anytime, even in the kitchen. The third stage is screwing in the bedroom. You've calmed down a bit, perhaps have kids, so you've got to do it in the bedroom. The fourth stage is in the hallway. This is where you pass each other in the hallway and say, "Oh, screw you." The fifth stage is in the courtroom. This is where you get divorced, and your wife delights in screwing you in front of everyone in the courtroom. So, up in the hill country, 2 rednecks, Cletus and Daisy, get married and go off to Niagara Falls for a week-long honeymoon. But just 2 days later, Cletus comes through the door of his father's house in a lather. His dad asks him, "Boy, why you home so early? You got another 5 days on your honeymoon." Cletus says, "I'm mad as hell. I can't be married to her any longer. I need a divorce." His dad asks, "A divorce? Why?" Cletus replies, "Because she's a virgin." His dad was very surprised and asked, "What, boy? What's the matter with that?" Cletus angrily said, "Hell, Dad, if she ain't good enough for her own family, she sure as hell ain't good enough for ours." So an old mountaineer and his young wife were getting a divorce in the local court of a small remote village. During the proceedings, custody of the children was the big problem. The mother jumped to her feet and protested to the judge that since she had brought the children into the world, she should be the one to retain custody of them. The old mountaineer was also seeking custody of the children. The judge asked for his side of the story. After a lengthy silence, the mountaineer rose from his chair and said, "Judge, when I put $1 into a Coke machine and a Coke comes out, does it belong to me or the machine?" So it was a busy morning in divorce court, with cases being called one after another. When it was finally Mr. Clark's turn, he walked up to the bench, looking a little too relaxed for the occasion. His soon-to-be ex-wife sat nearby, arms crossed, clearly not amused. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked at the stack of papers in front of her. "Mr. Clark," she began, "I've reviewed this case very carefully, and I've decided on a fair resolution." She cleared her throat and continued, "I'm awarding your wife $775 a week in spousal support." Mr. Clark leaned forward, nodded politely, and with a slight grin said, "That sounds very fair, Your Honor. And every now and then, I'll try to send her a few bucks myself." So a man got divorced with his wife and was told by the court that he's getting kicked out of his own house, and he only has 3 days to leave. On the first day, he sadly packed his belongings into boxes, crates, and suitcases. On the second day, he had the movers come to collect his things. On the third day, he sat down for the last time at their beautiful dining room table by candlelight. He put on some soft background music and feasted on a pound of shrimp, a jar of caviar, and a bottle of spring water. When he'd finished, he went into each and every room and deposited a few half-eaten shrimps dipped in caviar into the hollow center of the curtain rods. He then cleaned up the kitchen and left. On the fourth day, the wife came back with her new boyfriend, and at first all was bliss. Then, slowly, the house began to smell. They tried everything, cleaning, mopping, and airing out the place. Vents were checked for dead rodents, and carpets were steam cleaned. Air fresheners were hung everywhere. Exterminators were brought in to set off gas canisters, during which time the two had to move out for a few days, and in the end, they even paid to replace the expensive wool carpeting. Nothing worked. People stopped coming over to visit. Repairmen refused to work in the house. The maid quit. Finally, they couldn't take the stench any longer and decided they had to move. But a month later, even though they'd cut their price in half, they couldn't find a buyer for such a stinky house. Word got out, and eventually even the local realtors refused to return their calls. Finally, unable to wait any longer for a purchaser, they had to borrow a huge sum of money from the bank to purchase a new place. Then the ex called the woman and asked how things were going. She told him the saga of the rotting house. He listened politely and said that he missed his old home terribly and would be willing to reduce his divorce settlement in exchange for having the house. Knowing he could have no idea how bad the smell really was, she agreed on a price that was only 1/10 of what the house had been worth, but only if he would sign the papers that very day. He agreed, and within 2 hours her lawyers delivered the completed paperwork. A week later, the woman and her boyfriend stood smiling as they watched the moving company pack everything to take to their new home. And just to spite the ex-husband, they even took the curtain rods. So a 95-year-old man and his 94-year-old wife see a lawyer about a divorce. The lawyer asks them when they got married. "I was 19, says the man. "That means you've been married for 75 years at least," the lawyer points out. "Yes, and all of it misery," says the woman. "Really? When did you start to regret the marriage?" "Almost immediately," says the man. "I hated her after about 2 years, and every year it gets worse. Everything about her is obnoxious and irritating." "Oh, Lord," says the woman. "I lasted 3 years, but after that tolerating him in any way has been a huge problem. He has awful habits and treats me like trash." The lawyer thinks for a moment. "Well, I can help you to get divorced. But why did you wait so long to apply for one if you've hated each other the whole time?" She says, "We were waiting for the children to pass away." So a father and his 10-year-old son were in the grocery store. The son was throwing a penny up and catching it. After several successful attempts, he threw it up, lost it in a light, and it went into his mouth. He started choking, which caused the father to start freaking out and yelling for a doctor. A well-dressed woman walked over, calmly reached down and squeezed the boy's testicles through his clothes. He immediately spit up the penny and stopped choking. She didn't say a word and walked away. After making sure his son was okay, the father found the woman to thank her and said, "I've never heard of that before. Are you a doctor or something?" She replied, "Actually, no. I'm a divorce attorney." So a divorced man is at a party when he runs into his ex-wife's new husband. After having a few drinks, he walks over to the new guy with a smirk and says, "So, how do you like using second-hand stuff?" The new husband calmly takes a sip of his drink, then replies with a grin, "After the first 3 inches, everything's brand new." So on their way to get married, a young couple is tragically involved in a fatal car accident. They find themselves outside the pearly gates, waiting for St. Peter to process them into heaven. While they wait, they start to wonder, could they possibly get married in heaven? When St. Peter arrives, they ask him. Says St. Peter, "I've never been asked that before. Let me go find out." And with that, he leaves. The couple sits and waits. And waits. Months go by. As they wait, they start to think if they can get married in heaven, should they? After all, eternity is a long time. What if it doesn't work out? They wonder, would we be stuck together forever? After another month, St. Peter finally returns, looking exhausted. "Good news," he says. "You can get married in heaven." "That's wonderful," says the couple. "But we have one more question. If things don't work out, could we also get a divorce in heaven?" St. Peter's face turns red, and he slams his clipboard down. "Are you kidding me?" he shouts. "It took me 3 months to find a priest up here. Do you have any idea how long it'll take me to find a lawyer?" So a man walks into a toy store to buy a Barbie doll for his daughter. He approaches the assistant and asks, "How much is Barbie?" The assistant replies, "Well, we have Barbie goes to the gym for $19.95. Barbie goes to the ball for $19.95. Barbie goes shopping for $19.95. Barbie goes to the beach for $19.95. Barbie goes nightclubbing for $19.95. And divorced Barbie for $265. The man is puzzled. Wait, why is divorced Barbie $265 when all the others are only $19.95? The assistant smiles and says, "Oh, that's because divorced Barbie comes with Ken's house, Ken's car, Ken's boat, and Ken's furniture." So a newly divorced woman is strolling along the beach, disappointed about how horribly the divorce settlement turned out for her. As she's walking, she spots an old lamp half buried in the sand. Hopelessly, she picks it up and rubs the lamp, and to her surprise, a genie appears. The genie notices she is upset and lets her vent before proceeding to grant her 3 wishes. He, however, cautions her that he is not a fan of divorce and will give her ex-husband 10 times of whatever she wishes. She winces, but asks for her first wish. "I wish to have $1 billion. Poof, the next second, mountains of crisp banknotes amounting to $1 billion surround her. Her happiness is short-lived as the genie reminds her, "Your ex-husband now has $10 billion. Next." Her face has started to turn red. She composes herself. "I wish for a 25,000 square foot private mansion on this beach." Instantly, a beautifully luxurious mansion with all modern facilities appears in front of her. Before she could revel in the joy, the genie pointed her in a direction where, to her horror, stood 10 similar, magnificent mansions. "Now, what's your final wish?" The woman smiled and said, "I wish to give birth to twins."